Hey, welcome everybody to episode 2 of Underrated Underdogs. This is your host Chisholm coming at you. With me in virtual studio, we've got Brandon and Jen. How you doing today, fellas?
I'm good. I'm good. Football's back. Week 1 was amazing. I'm good.
Yeah, super excited for week one. Can't wait until week two. We got some tough matchups coming up.
Yes, definitely. This past week in football was super exciting. So before we jump in, how about Jen? You give us the bets from last week, our results. How are we looking?
Yeah, for sure. So overall for the weekend, we're sitting at 7-4. A lot of it was, we thought the Titans was going to perform well. Obviously it didn't. So overall, it's still a winning week for us. Especially with our picks, with Dak over 300, Cooper over 100. The Steelers covered in their spread. Same thing with the Eagles. Delvin Cook touchdown anytime, as well as the blowouts from the Saints. We thought the Saints was going to be a better team, especially knowing that Aaron Rodgers is now 3-5 in um, the state of Florida. So super excited about that, and we definitely got some more coming up.
Nice. Nice. Thank you very much for that update. As I said earlier, it was a very, very exciting week in football. I was about to say basketball there. It was a very exciting week in football. Um, so we've got some great topics to go over. The favorite QB performances, favorite rookie performances. We've got Cam's interview to get to. Or was it Cam's dad's interview? Who knows? Um, will Chandler Jones break the all time the regular season sack record? But before we get into all of that, how about them Cowboys? They didn't quite win. They didn't quite win, but they did give us a very very thrilling game on Thursday night against Tom Brady and the Bucks. Final score was 31-29 for the Bucks, as I mentioned there. And the man everyone had their eyes on was Dak Prescott, who was coming back from a horrific ankle injury he suffered in week 5 of last year's season. He came back and had a really solid game, over 400 yards and 3 TDs. So we will, go to our Cowboys insider, Jen. How impressed are you with Dak's first game back from injury, and how are you feeling about the Cowboys after that performance?
I'm super excited. I mean, just from our premium picks that we had last week, we predicted that Dak's gonna ball out. It's the beginning of the season. He wanted to prove everybody wrong. Especially you got the cameras and everything with the hard knocks and everything. So we got a glimpse inside of the organization itself. I mean, just to myself, I think Jerry Jones, puts way too much salt on his McMuffins and McGriddles. But that's I guess that's what a billionaire do. He just loves the salt. Um, but
Cholesterol, baby.
yeah. So I think it went really well for Dak. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed with Zeke, but it kind of makes sense when it comes to that, just because the Tampa Bay was a top five defense in rushing as well as for passing. Not so much on passing because Cowboys got three very very good wide receivers. So it's definitely something that I can look forward to. So we'll be looking forward to the Chargers game. It's definitely going to be a match, but I think the Cowboys will pull a win against Herbert and the boys.
Hmm. Brandon, how about yourself? I know you watched that game. How do you feel about Dak's performance?
First off, I think it was one of the best season openers I've ever watched. I think I suffered from a bit of recency bias before the game. I thought Tampa Bay's defense was going to come in the same way they did in the Super Bowl. The last thing I remember about the Cowboys was them getting beat by the Giants in the last game of the regular season. And I didn't think Dak would come back from injury as quick as he did, but he came back slinging the ball. I really like Dak Prescott as a QB. It was a bummer that we missed out on him last year, and obviously he's gonna treat us all with a ton of great performances. The biggest thing that I took away was that Brady still got it at 44. He is not slowing down. He can still dish it. And Jin, you guys paid Zeke way too much money. That guy is never coming back.
I don't think so. I mean, just thinking about Zeke, I know that it's just from like the landscape of the NFL. It seems like a lot of running backs this season is going to have a down year, just because it's mostly based off of passing now. We saw that in the game, the Tennessee game. When you fall behind, you can't have your running back running for 3 to 5 yards at a time. It kind of sucks for me because I uh, had the running back from Tennessee as my number one pick in my fantasy draft. Um, so he definitely did not do well for me. I believe he had about 11 points. But I think overall, it just seems like it's going to be a more of like a passing oriented season for everybody. But I'm glad that Dak is back. He got that chip on his shoulder. And fun fact, his weekly salary is higher than anybody who's drafted past the third round for their entire 4 year contract. So he definitely has something to prove. Every time that $4.7 million hits his bank account, he's gonna have more chips on his shoulders.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you just say his weekly salary is more than players' full 4 year contracts?
That is correct.
My
Yeah, he gets
lord.
paid well for this year. He's going to be making about 75 million throughout the year, including signing bonus as well as his weekly salary. So if you average that out, it's about $4.7 million per week.
Look, if he's gonna dish like he did in the season opener, he'll be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't say. 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, only one interception, and you couldn't ask for more. It was very unfortunate they didn't win that game. Of course, they had to face up against Brandon's guy, Tom Brady. They just left him way too much time at the end of the game. It's just you can't leave time on the clock with Tom Brady. If you do, you more than likely will regret it.
I mean, we're not going to talk about that play with Chris Godwin and the offensive pass interference. I mean, come on, it could have go. I know it could have gone both ways, but he was clearly pushing off. It's like that funny meme where whenever Tom Brady's passing, all the refs are just walking their dogs. So it's like I think it's a little bit biased, but I'm glad that they got it out of their way, and I'm looking forward to week 2, where I think Dak is gonna throw for another 400 yards. He's gonna break the single season record for passing and for touchdowns.
Oh wow.
Like yeah, like CD said last year, I think this year they legitimately have a chance to have 3 1,000 yard receivers on the same team at the same damn time.
You can say that was an offensive pass interference, but both the safety and Big Mike would say they didn't want the call to go. It could have gone either way. It wasn't a big deal. So, salty Cowboys fans, I've seen them before. Sure, this won't be the last of them. But,
It's all right.
Uh,
We'll just see you in the playoffs. Like Dak said, we'll see y'all in the playoffs.
mm.
yeah, Tom Brady in the playoffs is definitely the guy you want to go against for sure.
I mean, Tom Brady's actually questionable for week 2, so might be worth it to take a look at the 12.5 point underdogs of the Falcons.
Oh, did he tweak his back at what age? 50, 79? How old is this
Tom,
guy?
Tom Brady's 44.
Tom Brady should not be allowed.
Tom Brady is older than some coaches.
He's been in the league longer than a lot of players have been alive. Yeah, I guess moving on to more quarterbacks. There were a lot of veteran quarterbacks who played their first games on their new teams this past weekend. Like Matthew Stafford with the Rams, Jared Goff played his first game in the Detroit Lions uniform. Carson Wentz, who we spoke about last week, reuniting with his previous offensive coordinator Frank Reich in Indianapolis, and Sam Darnold, who got to face off against his former team, the Jets, this weekend. So I will start with you, Brandon. Which of the veteran quarterbacks on new teams impressed you the most?
I like Jared Goff the most. I know Stafford was the one that came out with a decisive win, obviously, but I think he was put in a way better situation. Obviously, he wanted out of Detroit. Goff was the one who got thrown into that situation. Nobody really had high hopes. Most people, I'm sure, thought that that was going to be a blowout, and in the first half, it absolutely was. But you're looking at a guy who his coach basically said in public media that he didn't want him on the team, traded him a few weeks later, and that could have had an effect on his confidence, but obviously he didn't let it. He had a rough first half, but he bounced right back. He had, almost 77 or 70% completion. He had, 338 yards. He was also still sacked 3 times, so he didn't have the greatest protection, but I like the performance. Considering that, Sean McVay and the Rams didn't want him as part of the team, I think he's doing a good job of saying, you made the wrong decision by going to the Lions and putting up that sort of a performance.
You don't think those yards at the end was empty calorie like what Dak was doing last year when they were losing?
You didn't call it empty calories when Dak was coming back. What I saw was 2 touchdown and 2-point conversions in a row by Jared Goff. He refused to quit, even though they were down by whatever blowout margin it was. He still came back, got a touchdown, converted the 2 points, got back an onside kick, touchdown, converted the 2 points, and with that fumble, he almost came back again. So he was pretty close to a comeback. I guess it was garbage yards because they didn't finish it off, but it wouldn't have been if he did.
It kind of reminds me of the Cleveland Cowboys game from last year where, I think where Cowboys is down 37 to 14 or something like that. And Dak kind of came back, but then, obviously Cleveland with the OBJ catch ruined the game for them. But I think overall, golf is good, but I think the best player that got on a new team would be Carson Wentz. That would be my pick, just because when it comes to everything that he has gone through with the foot, we weren't sure if he was going to start week one. He came out week one, did a solid job. Obviously didn't have all the preparation like Goff did. To get to know the receivers. He also lost T.Y. Hilton, due to injury. So I think overall he definitely looked like a pretty good quarterback. I think he's going to be on his way to his 2017 self when it comes to that. It might be even leading the Colts to a playoff win,
Wow.
or even a playoff run.
Wow,
I can't even argue with you. I wanted Wentz to make a comeback. I even talked about it last week.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. It's taking just one performance for you to give that to Wentz.
I mean, looking at the game when it comes to Wentz, it just seems like he had poise to wanting to win the game, but without the offensive power that he has a great offensive line, great running back. His receiver core is mediocre. I mean, like I said last time again, I think Michael Pittman Jr. should be focusing more on baseball, or sort of focus more on football, than his YouTube channel. It's funny that he can post all these things about his day-to-day life and everything, but you know maybe that has an effect on his overall performance. If he's thinking about too much about outside of football. Honestly, I think that if he drops his YouTube channel and actually just focus himself on football, he might be that new number one receiver in Indianapolis, and he wouldn't start a feud with Carson Wentz for jersey numbers, just because.
Hmm. All right. Okay. I guess moving on to to the rookies. So we're going to do Something similar to what we just did with the QBs on new teams. Which rookie had your favorite performance this weekend? We will start with you, Jen, this time.
For me, I got to go with Justin Fields. I know that he didn't start the game. He only played a couple snaps, but we got a glimpse of what can Justin Fields do on the field. He did have a 100% passing percentage. Obviously, he's only 2 passes, but we get to see what the future is like, and with that Bears defense, with Khalil Mack and everybody. I think Nagy is going to decide before week 3 that Justin Fields is going to be starting afterwards, and look out, Justin Fields coming for that rookie of the year for Mac Jones.
How about you, Brandon? Which rookie had your favorite first game?
First of all, I just want to say that the person I picked actually played an entire game, not just a few snaps. Second of all, I'm riding still with Mac Jones. I picked him for Rookie of the Year or Offensive Rookie of the Year, and what I saw this weekend just made me more excited. He did show up with a 75% completion ratio. He had a 102.6 QBR. He was averaging over 7 yards per attempt. The only thing he didn't do was win the game, and the only reason he didn't win the game was because of a Damian Harris fumble. He, in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter, drove the ball all the way down to the Miami 9, and it wasn't until Damian Harris fumbled the ball after a 2-yard run that caused them the game. They were only down 1 point. They could have easily kicked a field goal if he just held on to the ball. Obviously, they were trying to run the ball, so they didn't put the ball in harm's way. So they sort of kept it, and they could go up. But that wasn't the case, and Damian Harris kind of costed us that win. But it wasn't Mac Jones that costed his team the win. He looked like he was in command. He looked like a leader, and he did seem to keep his composure. And what you said, Jen, last week about QBs that don't lose often having coming back from composure. Trevor Lawrence got bum rushed out of the stadium, and he hasn't lost a regular season game ever until today. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes back.
Wouldn't you say it had the same effect with Mac Jones, where he was at Alabama, where they rarely lost any games in the past couple of years, if any, and always gets to the end. They always had the best players. They always had number 1 draft picks, number 1 picks out of their roster. So wouldn't you think that will have an effect on Mac Jones down the road if you start, losing 2 or 3? I mean, the mentality that Mac Jones has, do you think that will last the entire season if you start seeing 4, 5, 6 losses within the first 10 weeks? Once that losses start piling up, I think that's definitely going to have some effect to his overall confidence.
I think he's got a good support system that believes in him. The team thinks he can do it. His coach thinks he can do it. His coach thinks he can do it so much they cut their starter. I think he'll be fine. I think he's in good hands. I think he's a smart kid. I think he's a good leader.
Even though he wasn't able to convert a couple of those decent drives there, a little worried, a little skeptical.
Look, he only made a few throws that you would consider to be bad throws. If you factor out a couple of receiver drops, he had a fantastic game. Like I said, he doesn't do anything flashy. He's not a flashy guy. We know what to expect. He's going to make the right choices. He's going to make smart plays. And the game-losing play, like I said, was not at the hands of Mac Jones. It was at the hands of a different player. So, it'll be tough to put that loss on him, but I think he can rally the team and come back. And I think we're playing the Jets this week.
It's a good way to rally back.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just not going to talk about how Zach Wilson also looked like shit on the field. I mean, it's almost like 2017 all over again. You got Goff going number 1. You had Wentz going number 2. And then, Mac Jones going 15. He's almost like the Dak Prescott, of the bunch, where it seems like he is poised to be that, franchise quarterback that everybody's talking about, where Zach Wilson looks like he's going to be washed out after 3 years, traded to, the Washington football team for a 7th round pick, three years down the road if they don't start producing well. And like I said before, I think Trevor Lawrence, he didn't look good, and Urban Meyer is definitely not helping, considering there's rumors out there that he might take a job at USC. So it's definitely something that you know we can look at histories for pattern, and we definitely seen this pattern multiple times. But you know, it just seems like Mac Jones might also go into that realm of bust. 2-3 years down the road, if you look at history, because it just he might do well for the first couple of years. It's kind of like Mark Sanchez. He was doing pretty well for the first couple of seasons, and then all of a sudden, just one butt fumble, and that's it. So maybe Mac Jones will have one of those butt fumbles and loses confidence overall. Um, but hey, I mean, good for him if he's making a team and he's going to get that next contract with the Patriots. Um, but historical speaking, don't think it's going to go well for any of these quarterbacks.
I think the
Any of them?
world of NFL fans just doesn't want to believe that the New England Patriots could potentially have a franchise quarterback so quickly after we released a franchise quarterback of 20 years. I think the sports world wants us to fail for a while. And so everybody wants to hate on Mac Jones just because he has a photo with a gut and a cigar. But I think he's really good. And to touch on your earlier point, Zach Wilson didn't look that great, but he also got sacked 6 times. The only thing he has going for him is Robert Saleh, who unfortunately can't take the field, or else I'm sure he'd be a better help than a lot of that team.
All
They
right.
get they did get help for him, but it just seems like they need way too much help, and it seems like Jets might as well move out of New York. I mean, I think that might be the main reason. They look at the Giants. Giants have ruined a bunch of players already. They have a history of players that's like that. Same thing with the Jets. I think the Jets is this might be a bold prediction, but I think the Jets might go 0-6, 0-17, and create the new NFL losing record
Oh my god.
For the year.
That's a bold prediction.
Very bold prediction after week 1, John.
It's almost you look at their schedule and you look at everything that they have. It just seems like that's never going to happen. Like, I think who do you think they're going to upset? Like,
I
they're
don't
not going to
know.
upset anybody.
Just,
They're
you
always
could
going to
pray
be the
for a butt
underdog.
fumble at least, something.
I mean, butt fumble. The Jets created the butt fumble. That's what they did. So it's not like they're already well known to that. It's not like they don't know about it. They created the thing. So this might be the year where the Jets goes into history books as 0-17. They join the Cleveland Browns with 0. Actually, they can't even join the other teams that went 0-16 because they'll have literally the worst record in the record books, and that entire team seems like it seems like the Jets pieced all of their players from practice squad players and then decided to cut them, and then decided that, hey, let's just get some people on the streets. They'll be better at football. Or they'll look at more popularities than anything for that. I mean, we can go on forever about this Jets rant, but it just seems like the Jets is never going anywhere. The ownership sucks, and it just seems like they're the team this year, the poise at for 0-17. Actually, I'm going to look up the odds right now for them to go at 0-17.
So we're all in agreement that Mac Jones is Rookie of the Year. Is that what you're saying? That's what I'm
No,
hearing.
no, it just Mac Jones. The other thing you got to think about for Rookie of the Year is that you can have a dominant performance, but at the end of the day, if everybody hates on you, they're not going to vote for you. So what are you going to do at that point? I mean, a case in point, going back to 2015 when Dak gets drafted, he was in the 4th round. Zeke was the 4th pick overall, and who won the Rookie of the Year? Dak. So judging from that, the higher draft pick doesn't mean that you're going to win Rookie of the Year, but it just it helps you down the road, and especially with everybody hating on the Patriots. I don't think they're gonna award it to Mac Jones, no matter if he throws 50 touchdowns
I
this
mean,
season.
if he is as good as the Patriots think he is, and he is able to overcome all the hate that's coming his way, you still don't think the media will do him a solid and throw this one his way?
No, look at the hatred that Tom Brady got. Even he got out of New England. You know that's like public enemy number one is the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots. I mean, it just seems like everybody's targeting on him. You know, if he has a shit game down the road, he's gonna get crapped on. He's gonna get crapped on more than anybody, and you know that time will be is to test his mentality overall. And you know, if he can't, you know, if they break his mentality, that's it. You know, he might last 3 4 years and then be a backup.
Brandon is not agreeing to this, but
No, I'll save it for later. I have a whole season to convince you of this, and then I'll just wear my jersey in our first playoff game episode.
have you bought your Mac Jones jersey yet? By the way,
No, Jin's gonna buy it for me when he wins Rookie of the Year.
the confidence, I love it. I guess going from the current New England Patriots quarterback to the former um, New England Patriots quarterback Cam Newton this weekend released an interview. It was him and his dad on YouTube. I don't know who was interviewing who. This was probably the most awkward interview I've ever watched. But Cam did tell his side of the story of what happened in New England, and emphatically said he is not done in the NFL. He's still hoping and looking for a position that's right for him. Um, as I said, you can find the full interview on YouTube. But I want you guys to break it down for the listeners. What was your biggest takeaway from this Cam interview? We will start with you, Brandon.
Um, I want to start off by saying I like Cam Newton. I really like Cam Newton. He's entertaining to watch. He's obviously entertaining on the sidelines. He's just a fantastic character, and I've always loved him since he was drafted. And what I guess I took from the interview was like he is kind of over it. Like he saw the writing on the wall and had a chance to accept it. It doesn't sound the same for his dad, though. It sounds like his dad's still pretty pissed off about it. At least that's what I got. This is a situation where Cecil was supposed to be interviewing Cam. And what it seemed like what was actually happening is Cecil would ask a question and then answer it himself. And so he was sort of the centerpiece of the entire thing. Personally, I think Cam would have been better to go on. Uh, Pat McAfee show would have been a great place because at least he could still control the narrative. It's not like they're backed by a network. They just spent the whole day shitting on State Farm, so they don't really care about big networks. And so I don't know. Like I like that Cam's over it. I like that he didn't take it personally, that he understands it as a business decision. I guess I don't like the execution of it, but it wasn't his fault.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I kind of I side with you there. I feel like if he had done this episode or this interview somewhere else, I'm just with someone who is a little what's the word, not as close to the situation as his dad is. I feel like he would have been able to get a few more objective questions, and then Cam would then would be able to get a clear story of how things happened in New England. How about yourself, Jen? What did you take from this interview?
You know, I think he got his word out. You know, everybody wasn't really expecting that. But at the same time, it just seems like he doesn't care anymore. You know, it definitely didn't help with his, you know, of him saying that he can be a backup somewhere. It just seems like his ego got in the way of everything for that, and started the with the videos and everything. So I mean, I definitely agree with Brandon that it's definitely it would have been good that he went on to like a show like Pat McAfee show where he could talk about it, and it would it would gotten a lot more attraction, and people would sympathize with him, of what they did to him and everything like that. But also at the same time, I think he's done with it. I think he's done with football. And I think the NFL teams are pretty much done with him as well. They think him as a risk. That's why I don't think nobody's going to be taking a chance on him, especially after he posted that video on YouTube with the interview.
I mean, like I feel like the negative things, quote unquote negative, things that were said in that interview didn't really come from Cam, because he seemed to understand, this the franchise was going to be turned over to Mac Jones at some point, and he just felt like they kind of sped up that process. The only thing, or I guess the point where I agree with him and his dad is that where they felt that he should have gotten at least 5 games in the at the beginning of this season to try to prove himself. But at the same time, if you're looking at it from the New England Patriots standpoint, if we have a guy that we believe in, a guy who we think is going to be the future of this franchise, why not just hand him the keys now? And if he makes mistakes, he makes them, and he's going to learn from them. Yeah. But I guess moving on from the Cam interview, Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones. If you don't know who Chandler Jones is, I'd suggest just take 2 minutes to go watch his performance against the Titans on Sunday. The Cardinals linebacker started off the season with a bang. I mean, 5 of them. It was 5 bangs. He sacked the Titans QB Ryan Tannehill 5 times. If he touched him anymore, he would have been hit with an assault charge. But for context, the current NFL record for sacks in the season is 22.5. He got 5 in the first week. So as our betting guy here, Jen, do you buy that Chandler Jones will break the all-time sack record, or the
No,
regular season sack record?
no, I definitely don't think so. Judging from the past stats point of view, it seems like he pounces on shit teams, or good teams that have questionable tackles on the side, and that's when he gets his sacks. And if I just pull up the numbers from 2019, where he had a full season, he had 4 sacks against the Giants, and then right afterwards, the week after in Week 8 in 2019, he played the Saints, where he had no sacks. San Francisco, he had 1. Tampa Bay, he had 2. And then San Francisco again, he had 1. So it seems like he might not have that burst of 3 to 5. I don't think 5 sacks is going to be ever done again this season. I think teams are going to be preparing more on Chandler Jones than anyone else. So I don't think anybody's going to be touching that record. There have been tons of players that have really good stats in 1 week and then just completely drop down because the NFL and the teams they adapt based off of what they see the previous week and they work on it during the week. So I definitely don't think he's going to break the 22.5 sack record.
Brandon, how about you? He is over 20% of the way there. Do you buy Chandler Jones breaking the current sack record?
I'm biased, but I absolutely do. And I'm glad you brought up 2019. Let me give you some context on 2019. It was the last time he played a full season, and he got 19 sacks. You mentioned he had some up and down games, but he still finished off the season with 19. He's got an extra game this year. On his career, he's averaging 0.8 sacks a game, almost 1, which I mean will put him close if he did that. He needs to average 1.1. So if he has, a couple games with 0, a couple games with 1, a couple games with 2. He's still in the running. And one of the things I looked at was what are the O-lines he's playing against? 8 of them are in the top 10 overall rating. So he's got, some tough games ahead of him, but then he's also got a couple bad ones. He's got the Panthers, he's got the Vikings, he's got the Jaguars, he's got the Seahawks, which I know it's hard to catch Russ, but he's done it before a couple times in a game. So fingers crossed he can do it again. I'm all for it. I think Chandler Jones is going to break the record.
But I don't think you're taking consideration of the overall game flow. It just seems like, again, everybody's going to adapt to what he's going to be doing, and plus, you don't know what that defense is going to do. When it comes to all 11 players on the field, he might get unlucky, and when he's getting a sack, his other teammates are getting a defensive hold, pass interference, whatever it is. I mean, it just seems like it's an improbable way of thinking that, he's going to have that consistency. The only consistency in the NFL is, a good starting quarterback, throwing for yards. But, we even saw that break, with Aaron Rodgers throwing 2 picks. And, he would have had a better QBR rating if he just threw every single pass into the dirt. So, you definitely can't count on consistency because games change week by week. Offensive coordinators is going to move around him. It's if Chandler Jones blitzing, great, they'll be running screens. They can't get to the quarterback. If he drops back and he's trying to get sacks in a different way, they'll adapt to it. Just from a stat point of view, it just seems improbable that he's going to be hitting that target. And we're not even forgetting about injury. He did spend the majority of his time last year on injury reserves with a season-ending injury. So you also got to take that in consideration. He is older. People are going to be more targeting on him. So I don't think he's going to be hitting that 22.5.
Look, he's facing a lot of quarterbacks that hold the ball, which is fantastic for him if he wants to keep the sack record. And if you look at his D-line, he's got J.J. Watt on the other side. I mean, before that, he had some guys. Now he's got J.J. Watt, who's probably going to be attracting attention. I know he's not the J.J. Watt he once was, but he still, attracts attention from the O-line to cover him and put some extra help there. So he has a potential to, have a bit more free shots than he did in the past few years. And like I said, he's playing a couple of quarterbacks that like to hold on to the ball. So I like the chances. Obviously, pending injury. I know he spent the past couple seasons only playing, a third of the season. And I hope he doesn't get injured. I really like watching Chandler Jones, but barring injury, I think he'll do it. He's got an extra game, which he obviously took advantage of in game 1. And I feel good about watching Chandler Jones break this record this year.
Yeah, you know what? I just want him to keep putting hands on quarterbacks the way he is. But that's kind of all for the topics that we had today. Jen, do you want to go over our bets for next week?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it just seems like it's going to be a wild week this week. But here's some of our bets. Obviously, our bets can change and lines can change at any time. But this might be a biased bet, but I think the Cowboys is definitely going to cover their 3-point spread against the Chargers. And I think this is going to be coming down to a field goal. If Chargers can keep up with the scoring from the Cowboys. So that's the one that we have. And then we're going to hop up to the Bills. Look, Bills shit the bed week 1, but we expect them to bounce back. So we got the Bills at -3 on the spread to win. And then as well as we also think Minnesota is going to bounce back against the Arizona Cardinals. Kirk Cousins is on his contract year. They did score more than 24 points in the last game in week 1. Obviously against the Bengals, which, had a pretty okay defense and everything. It just seems like nothing was clicking. But I think, it'd be a good bet to have the Vikings team total over 22.5. As well as we have a new segment, if you check out our Discord, what we call Pizza Money Parlays, where we combine some wild and ridiculous parlays that we have, for Pizza Money at odds of, 100, 200, 1,000 to 1, which we actually built one for this week, which is the Saints to win by 6.5 points. We got the Panthers over 20 points on their game, team total. We have Cincinnati to cover their spread by 7.5. We got the Bears scoring over 24 points. And then we got Indy over 21 points, but we got the LA Rams beating them by 7 points. And then we have, last but not least, we have the Raiders covering their 7.5 point spread. But we project Steelers over 28 points. So that one, if we combine everything together, that one is a 1,200 to 1 odd. We'll be spending some pizza money on that.
Hey, let's go. With that, we have reached the end of the show. If you've stayed this long, yes, you've stayed this long, why not hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a follow at underrated FTFW. Once again, that is underrated FTFW on Instagram. Thank you very much, and we will see you back again next week.